Mr. Anderson?
Present.
Mr. David?
Present.
Mr. Phil Metzger?
Here.
Mr. Haas?
Here.
Mr. Meyer?
Here.
Ms. Shasma? Mr. Johnson?
Here. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes and review those on November and also December? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. And are there any corrections that anybody would like to make?
Do I have to point out that I spelled your name wrong?
Well, you don't.
Okay.
So I usually tell people spell it any way you want, just, phonetically is good. So
I'll fix it.
sure. So do we have a motion then to approve the November 15th minutes and the December 20th minutes?
I so move to approve.
We have a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And abstentions. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Well, I just wanted to say a couple of words here. Thank you for everyone coming. Betty, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late.
And we have a full agenda, so keep it very brief here. But I did want to recognize, I know we did last time, but I think a lot of Mary and the service that she provided us as the TAC chair, and she has really spent a lot of years working on this committee, and I'm very thankful for her work and service. I also want to welcome our newest member, John Anderson. So,
Thank you.
yep, welcome, John. And some of you weren't here, but John has a very, how would you say, distinguished record of service as a city manager and other issues involving transportation, so he'd be a real asset to our efforts here on the TAC. I did want to say that I shared several issues, ideas with John Lewis and Kathy Griffin, and about some of the things that we might consider doing the upcoming year. Maybe interfacing with some of the other city committees, with the committees like planning and urban renewal, tourism, economic development. These are committees that have issues that deal with transportation, and so we're going to explore the possibility of doing a little bit more interfacing with them. Also like to explore some of the possibility of subcommittees and having maybe each of us take a focus area and do some work and report on that each month. But all brainstorming, and we've set a meeting for February 2nd at 2 p.m. here at the City Hall, and John, Kathy, and Nancy Krischauer will be at that meeting, and of course all of you are invited to participate in that and brainstorm with us. How about that? So I'll send a notice, or Kathy will send a notice about that meeting.
I have to be careful about, I'm not sure, actually John might know better than me, but if you have too many members, then it's an official meeting.
Okay. Point taken. We'll discuss that. So very good. With that, are there any changes that need to be made to the agenda? All right. Kathy?
I guess first we have Laura up for the TSP item. And I have to dim the lights. And remember, board members can hit their toggle switch. Okay. So you don't have to crane your neck.
That's good.
The screen should be up in just a moment.
And Laura, just, I don't know if you're going to do this, but could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do here for the city? Some might not know that.
Sure. My name is Laura Turway. I've been with the city for 8 years or so. I'm a city planner, and I'm helping out Nancy in the Public Works Department work on our transportation system plan update.
your mic on?
Mike's,
So,
the screen should be black. We're trying
It
to
is.
get that
No,
image up
something's
there
wrong.
for
Need to
you.
push a button.
I hit the testify button.
Is it on?
Oh, you know what? I hit that.
Did y'all get a chance
I
to
need to turn this off.
We're learning.
There we go.
read
Sorry.
through the TSP technical memo? That was fun.
Yeah. so-
All good.
Yeah, so I'm here to provide you
together.
just,
Yeah.
I'll give you a brief overview of our transportation system plan one more time, and then we'll walk through how to submit comments, and again, talk about what your role is in this process. So as we know, the TSP, which is this document right here, is our guiding document for our transportation system in Oregon City. It essentially looks at how people get around. We want to make sure that people can get around as easy as possible and that we have a balanced transportation system. So that'll look at all modes, including walking, biking, freight, just how people move around the city. In this process, we want to evaluate our current transportation system and see how we can make improvements. Also, we want to look at ways where we can maybe make little improvements that aren't related to the TSP, or larger improvements to maybe change our street design, maybe add some bus stops on locations where they're needed, things like that. On the screen you can see a couple of examples. These images on the bottom are from our TSP website. We'll go through it at the end of the presentation. These are all comments that people have uploaded onto the website. So with this process, we were awarded a grant from Oregon Department of Transportation. The city put in some funding as well. This process will last until 2013 sometime. We've hired a consultant, which is DKS and Associates. The head on this project is Carl Springer, and they have a team of sub-consultants on the project as well. We'll also have a technical advisory team, which you're going to be a part of, and a stakeholder advisory team. The technical advisory team will include people like Metro, TriMet, even the garbage company. It's just a little bit more technical to figure out, can garbage trucks make these turns if we change our street designs, or how have other jurisdictions worked to make a better system. And the stakeholder advisory team will have another group of people. They'll include hopefully high school students, seniors, business community members. We want to represent a variety of interests so that we get people's different experiences, so we can get as many comments as possible to make the best product as possible. And of course, the public's always a big part of this process. We'll walk through the process, and you can see that they're involved in every stage. Everything we do is placed online for the public to review. So just summarizing our process for review, this is a large document, and it's a lot to think about. So we broke it down into 12 segments. Each segment we're writing a memo on, and so each of you will be reviewing these 12 memos. The list of memos starts with background information, existing conditions, then we'll try and figure out solutions, and then how we rank those solutions, and hopefully at the end of this we'll also come up with a list of projects, and we'll rank them and figure out what we have funding for as well. This is a diagram of the TSP review. So each memo is going to be placed on our website, then we'll send you an email directing you to the website so you can read the memo and upload your comments. We'll get to that and how you do that in just a minute. Then after you review it, it will go to both the technical stakeholder team and the stakeholder advisory team, of which you know you're a part of, so you only have to review it once. You don't have to review it twice, but you can review it as many times as you want to. You're just the first run straight off of the city, since you're our representative group. After that, when all of those 12 memorandums are reviewed thoroughly by the public in different jurisdictions, then we'll put them together in a draft TSP. That draft TSP will go through a legislative review process, which requires another round of public review, planning commission review, and ultimately adoption by the city commission. So, what is your role? Your role again is to review each of these 12 tech memos and attend 4 meetings. The meetings will be between February 2012 and September 2012. We don't think that there will be any additional meetings, just these 4. The meetings will last about 2 hours long, and yours will be starting slightly, maybe from 3 to 5 or 3:30 to 5, somewhere in that range. Since you're on the technical team, our stakeholder advisory team will start after 5 o'clock. The meetings will start at the end of February, beginning of March, depending on which day works best for our committee members. We're getting ready to send out an email just to firm up that date. So, how do we review these tech memos? You go to our website, which is octransportationplan.org. And first you have to start by logging in or registering. You don't have to log in to view the tech memos, you just have to log in if you want to submit information to the website. So on this, I'm logging in. So this is what you see when you log in. This is our website. It's really great. If you haven't been here before, just a brief overview. It gives detailed descriptions about every part of this process, summaries of all the tech memos so you'll know what's coming up. We have questions of the month, and under our Get Involved page, we have sort of a blog system where we can see different people and what they've posted, and we can comment on their posts. Yours won't say remove there.
I'm assuming when we go to the website to log in, it'll prompt us to do a password and all of that. So okay.
It'll say register, and then you just create
All right, good.
your name and a password. So this is a link from the Get Involved page, which is our interactive comment map, which we are quite proud of. So in this, different people have submitted comments. You can see them here, and they're displayed on the map. So this is a pedestrian comment. If you zoom out, there's even more comments on there. About different issues, maybe that there's an intersection that has difficult sight distance. One of these comments, I think they're on Lynn Avenue, is about having difficulty crossing Lynn. So any comments at all get posted on this website. Some of them, one of the comments is related to signal timing, so that one we could address outside the TSP, but at least we have a place for any transportation-related comments to come to the city. So we have at least a central gathering place. And then all the ones that are applicable to the TSP we'll put in, or we can at least start to make a list of improvements we can make to our transportation system. So that's just a brief overview of the website. So back to the draft TSP. You click on the draft TSP link there on the left. This is all our memos thus far. There's only a couple on here. There will be more to be posted. So there's 3 on here, and with each memo there's a summary. So we want to make sure that if people are pressed for time, or if there are certain issues and we really want to make sure that you want to pay attention to these issues, we'll write it in the summary. So the summary is just a short condensed document. Sometimes the tech memos can be very technical and very long, so we wanted to make sure that you at least read that summary. So if you read the whole document, you know what to pay attention to. So if you click on the memo, here's the first one. You can read the whole document. You can print it, write your comments on it, or you can upload your comments directly to the website. So here's the whole document. Going back to the website, if I want to just kind of say my comments in a blog type form, like the other page where they put their comments relating to public comments, at the bottom here, I can click create a post, and I'm already logged in. So then I can just write my title and my comment. I'll go through later and delete this and post it. So then it will be in that document at the bottom. And anybody who disagrees with my comment or agrees with my comment can go in there and post in my comment, or you can post more comments as well. But say I've printed the document, written my comments, and now I've scanned it, I have this PDF version of a new document. How do I upload that? There's a couple of things. If you go at the bottom of the page, it'll say upload a document with your comments here. So if I click on that, it'll prompt me to find a file. I made a file that just says test. So if I find that, I can upload that. And now it's uploaded as well. So when I go to the draft TSP page, it'll have, I'm sorry, if I go to the documents page, these are draft tech memo comment uploads. Mine's in there. So it'll say test. You can open it up and say I had more specific rather than just a generalized statement. Whether it's a PDF or a Word version, it'll link directly to your document. So the point is to just read what's ever on the website and upload or provide your comments in a place where everyone can see them and everyone can comment on them. This way, this process is a little bit easier because you can do everything at your own pace. You're only going to those 4 meetings, and everyone can see what's going on along the way, too. So that is just a brief overview of our TSP process. Are there any questions about uploading documents or what we're expected to do?
I have a question about those people that may not have a computer and how is that available at the library for them to read, and they can write responses and send them to you?
Yes.
Okay.
It is available at the library as well, and you can give me whatever comments and I can upload anything myself for you as well. It's just a place we have everything centralized, but all the tech memos should be available at the library for viewing.
Okay.
So if we're having difficulty in the first go-around or two, can we call your office and get some coaching?
Yes, you can call me whenever you need me. And since it's kind of a living process, if someone makes a comment and you want to comment on that comment later, or, since it's going to different groups, you can always jump in later or submit your comments later. We're giving you a rough timeline so we have the opportunity for you guys to review it before it goes to the technical and the stakeholder committees. That's really just seeing if there's anything glaringly wrong which we missed, or some important issue that we should start to pay attention to ahead of time. So yeah, that's it. Unless there's any other questions on the TSP. We're excited to have you be a part of the process. We're looking forward to a successful process. We have a really extensive public outreach campaign. We'll be sending stuff to the public in their water bills. This TSP plan goes to the urban growth boundary, so it goes outside city limits. We will be mailing notices to people's houses. We will be posting information about this on the website. We have cards going around. We're hoping that people just learn about our website and submit their comments.
I just wanted to say that I think that this first document is actually, for me, probably one of the most important, in that it really outlines the goals and kind of some of the working philosophy. There is a philosophy behind the planning goals at Metro and at the state, and some of the goals of reducing single operator vehicle by 40%, and so there's a lot of but understanding where that's coming from, I think, will help direct us in how we look at situations in Oregon City and then make comments about that.
Especially issues like connectivity, which is important in some of the RTP and all these larger documents. It'll be important to know.
So I have a couple
Yes.
thoughts. Most of the chapters, maybe not the first one, but most of the other chapters have maps.
Yes.
So this doesn't provide for map editing, or will this provide for map editing?
You could write your comments in the blog form, or you could print it, write them on it, and then upload that maps document. You scan it back in or something like that.
Okay.
If you want to edit a PDF, I can email an editable version, and that way you don't have to do scanning and rescanning. But it won't be as easy as for our team to work on it. It'll be everything is in pretty much PDF form. You'd either write your comments on it or just submit free-form comments in the blog.
So the other question that I had was, early on we talked about dedicating meeting time, looking at this as a group. This feels very much like individual review, and then What I'm also not sure about is, so for instance, if the chair of the TAC committee makes a comment, does that have a different weight than citizen comment? So I guess I'm trying to figure out how we as a committee should pursue review, or are we going to talk about it during our meetings? I guess we haven't really figured that
I
out.
haven't really figured it out.
Right,
That's a great
so
question.
That is
What do
up
you
to-
recommend?
It's
Or?
up to you as a group how you want to proceed. If you want to briefly talk about each of the tech memos, John is one of the first reviewers before it goes to you, so he's familiar with the contents of the tech memos as well. The weight doesn't really matter. You'll be at the TAC, so you could speak at that meeting. The general public probably won't be able to, although they have space to sit on our stakeholder advisory team. We have extra spaces for anyone who wants to participate. But it kind of evens out the playing field so everyone is on the same level.
Mhm.
So everyone has comments and they'll all be listened to the same. DCAS and Associates will take those comments when they revise it at the very end of the process. So you'll just see this list of comments through the process, and it's not till the end that you'll start to see that second draft of the document. But if you guys want to meet and talk about it, we can. If you need me here to talk about it, I can come here too.
One of the things that I was kind of worried about as I was looking at the agenda, I mean, we've got Tech Memo 1 in the package. I looked at that maybe 6 weeks ago, I think. I'm on Tech Memo 5 right now. So my memory is poor. So I won't exactly, unless I study up, remember what was in Tech Memo 1. So that's one of those things that I'll have to figure out, we'll have to figure out as a group. And I don't know, Blaine, you probably need to open this up for...
Well, I think that going back to Kathy's comment, there are evidently some rules that I needed to get up to speed on in terms of, because my approach would be, hey, let's all get together and just have a time where we talk about this and get into it on a less formal basis. But so I'm not sure what the restrictions are there, and but I'll find that out and we'll do something. We can do shifts.
There you go.
So,
Okay.
but yeah, I would like to do that on a less formal basis. We just talk and share and ideas and so. Okay, any other comments?
I have a question, and that is, there's a lot of material here, and it's kind of a cascading effect. You start with state plan and then metro and move on down. How do we know, as a new committee member, which goal or standard is negotiable and which is not? So, for example, I know the state and metro have significant criteria about density, and density in turn impacts roads. Is that density number something we can play with, or policy-wise, or is it just fixed and we have to live with it? That's just one example. Where do we know where there's flexibility and where there is not?
That's a good question. I would form that into a comment to post up to the website, because some of them can be very complex answers depending on which document. So in some cases, the answer is no for density. In some cases, a little bit different. We have to hit minimum standards for things like density, but just posing that question so that you're forcing the team to look at that is a good step.
So as we read memorandum number 1, if we weren't certain about 2 or 3 items in there, we could say, is there flexibility here, or do we have to live with this goal?
And then, what do you want out of that flexibility?
Yeah.
And since we'll be reading them along the line, we can respond and ask you more and try and answer your question for you or tease out what you need as well.
So, in my review, I notice a lot of mine have been actually questions, not necessarily specific direction on what they shall do or should do. It's been about questions a lot of it's about where I think we need clarity, but some of it might be exactly that. Do we have to have this arterial road standard, for this particular neighborhood? And that, I think that's a viable kind of approach. In my review's been quite different in terms of how we post our comments, but we've also not necessarily seen what we've seen is a revised memo. We haven't gotten responses from each of our questions, right? We don't get a specific response to our question, and I'm guessing that's true here too, right? We'll just see revisions. Will they talk at the? Do you envision at these 4 meetings there'll be some feedback on some of the input that they got?
Right, and at the 4 meetings, I'm envisioning feedback on those comments, and then if there really were questions posed out there that we need to discuss, what do we value more, A or B, that we can really figure that out. And it will be posed in that tech memo too. So there will be communication back and forth as much as needed, but it'll all kind of happen via the website.
And DKS will be at those 4 meetings?
We will.
Okay.
And I think they're coming to one of these meetings as well, to the TAC. If you have any questions about anything at all, we can always...
So a specific question like John just had, that would be an appropriate time to pose it at, so have our, I guess we should have our ducks in a row when DKS is going to be there.
You
kind
can
of
post them
direction.
online, and then DKS will
But
respond.
as John was saying, they might not answer directly a question. They might just reformat it. And if we had a specific question, we could get that answered at those meetings.
Or just send me an email if you want an answer, and we can kind of prod them to get one for you.
Or is it possible for them to produce a response to every question in a tablet form? That's pretty daunting, but at the same time they're reading them, they're dealing with each one of those. Maybe there's a log, if you will, of those.
We'll have to see what comes in, and if it's and how easy it is to answer, or how. But we'll let you know. We won't leave you.
So it's not really it's set up like a blog to where you can continue to read the comments and the back and forth. It's just you upload it and then it's gone.
So
Okay.
if you upload a question that talks about what are the density restrictions, then we could potentially go in there and answer some of those, and then other people could comment on that, and then you
Okay.
can also upload a new subject matter.
Okay,
It's
so we will be able to follow it. Okay, that's
Here's
good.
the Get Involved page. It's similar, where anyone from the public uploads a comment. Some of these we've uploaded because they've been sent to us directly over email or something. And then you can go into these comments and post a reply. You can talk about that specific topic, or you can start a new conversation. But either way, there's a way to reply and get back to you in this public format so everyone can read the response.
Well, this is a challenging project. I think, John, you speak to a good point in that, it's the beauty of it, in one sense, is so big, and there's so many people involved from the state right down to the, to here to Oregon City. The challenge, that's also a challenge, because, how do we know where we fit in and what we can talk about? And I guess for myself, I'm thinking I really need to understand Oregon City's goals, because if I don't understand kind of what the city is looking at in terms of where it wants to go, economic development and tourism, if I don't kind of understand the big picture, then how does the transportation segment fit into that? So,
And we have our comprehensive plan. It was last amended in 2004. So this will become an ancillary document to our comprehensive plan, which is a basic guideline for the city and how we want to progress. But again, it hasn't been updated since 2004. But in that first tech memo, you start to see project goals and objectives to reduce VMT and make alternative modes of transportation more viable or enticing, things like that.
So the goals in this first tech memo, are those Oregon City goals, or are those metro goals, or are those state goals, or all the above?
All of the above.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
I'm looking at the first memo here. It was mailed out on page 2. the bottom of the page, Table 2, they have objectives like safety, congestion, climate change, active transportation, etc.
Yes.
And then there's specific targets on this listed. Now, how do we know which ones of those are state, metro, or city?
We just put them all in together. We can tease them out for you so you can see which one, but we just kind of put them all in the same pot. I mean, I guess in a sense, if a TPR or some sort of larger jurisdiction or metro organization adopts a goal, then it does become part of our goals. So it kind of is all one and the same. We couldn't, for the most sense, you really can't choose to ignore anything. Like connectivity is one of, it's in our RTP, the Metro Regional Transportation, RTFP, functional plan, and the RTP as well, to have greater connectivity. And there are certain standards that we can pull out of there. There's some footnotes that link to those documents, but we can point to the specific page or chapter of those documents to see exactly what the language says.
So, a clarification then, basic infrastructure says increase by 50% access times to sidewalks, trails, etc. So how do we know that 50%, whether is that 50% a state number, a metro number, or was that a local option? Because if it's a local option, we could decide, no, we want it to be 70% or 30%, but we don't know that.
I'd assume that none of the standards are negotiable unless they say that they're negotiable, as a general rule. But if you want to pose that question, we can find out for you exactly what standard that came from and if it is negotiable or not. You know, if you just want to sort
Yeah, I'll give it some thought, because I mean, the question will be is how much of a prerogative does a local city have to make decisions within these criteria that are coming down?
There'll be things like our functional classification plan, where we designate minor arterials, collectors. You'll see in that tech memo that we have a lot of flexibility on how we apply these things. So, you know, one of the questions that came up was, do we want to get rid of a neighborhood collector because it's so similar to a collector? So you'll see some places where we do have that flexibility, and or do we want to make, you know, another collector, neighborhood collector in South End area? So you'll start to see places where we do have a lot of flexibility. The first tech memo is good just because it gives us exactly what all our standards are, and so a lot of those in that first one aren't going to be as negotiable because they're just pulling out connectivity requirements and things like that. So if you have any questions, though, upload them, and then you're forcing us to figure out your answer.
Yeah, I'll give it some thought.
One of the things that I recall, and again, it's been weeks as I'm just looking through that first tech memo, there's a lot of acronyms in there. That was a big learning curve for me, was all the acronyms. But the goals did very much feel like goals that were established and not something that was going to be easily changed. That was my read on it. Now, I'm not finding what you're specifically talking about, but you know, for instance, the transit, bicycle, and pedestrian projects, traffic calming, land use strategies, connectivity. Those are going to be things that the region has kind of set some goals. In Oregon City, despite the fact that there might not be a strong element of let's say bicycle desire for bike lanes or bike facilities. The metro region's going to overrule on that, and the state's going to overrule on that particular criteria. So I don't remember seeing a lot in Chapter 1 that looked negotiable to me. But
well, a lot of that's established in OER 660-0112 on transportation, and then I think bicycles like 45 or 48 in there. So if you want to dig down, go to the OERs, and that can tell you some of the requirements that the DLCD put together with ODOT. And those aren't negotiable. That's the transportation planning.
We link to those master documents, but if you want those specific sections, we can send them to you too.
So the approach is very much still ask the question. I think there'll be a way to get an answer out of that.
But we'll have some flexibility about how we apply it. Do we want bike boulevards or do these different ideas? So.
The comprehensive plan, is that, I know it's on the website. Where is that on the website?
Ooh, I haven't looked for that for a while. If you go to orcity.org, you can type in the search function here, comprehensive plan,
Got it.
and we should have it in there. From our planning department homepage, we have a link to it as well. It's a large document, and again, it'll talk about our priorities. Again, back in 2004, we're not really ready to update it yet, although we're maybe starting to go down that road.
Okay.
But it'll be in that search engine if you want to look for it. And it should be under our documents page as well, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
That's something that's important to me, is finding out how transportation is interfacing with economic development. What are the goals there? You know, in this document that we read, the technical memorandum, I saw very little about commercial. You know, how transportation fits in with commercial. I saw some specs, but really didn't see any ways to encourage, I guess, economic development, manufacturing, that kind of a thing. So I just want to make sure that we're also looking at that and.
And that'll be reflected in our TSP as well, because we'll have maybe different design standards for different streets. We have a specific design standard for commercial areas right now, so do we want to change that for downtown? Does it apply to 7th and Malala the same? So those kind of things for sort of street applications will apply.
Excuse me, I'm ignorant about the current designs. Are we going to be looking at more green street designs, or we already have those, like rain gardens and...
We don't have any specifically identified in there, so I personally think that the key to this update is to figure out a way to build flexibility so that we can build them if we want to, and maybe we can encourage them, or really look at context-sensitive design and things like that.
It would be kind of good if we had some type of design in our design standards so that we could have a toolbox for developers. So they can go, these are all the different tools you have available to you for an arterial or collector.
I agree. Right now we just have our standard street designs, and in the planning department, when we look at new development and new streets, we have some flexibility to alter that slightly. So I think it's wording or phrasing what is the maximum street design, and then depending on your context, how do we alter that so people know it's going to be built where, but they still have opportunities for creative designs, or if you're next to a stream, maybe we could drop something, or sidewalk or something. So that'll be the key. I think that'll be one of the most challenging parts, is how to craft that specifically.
Nice. Okay, any other comments? Okay.
All right, I think I am next on the agenda.
You're
as
next on the
well.
agenda. You want to move to the other chair or something, just to...
Again, Laura Turway. So, as you know, we're working on the Jug Handle project, which is at the corner of 213 and Washington Street. So, we have announced our closure date. For this construction, we are going to close the portion of Highway 213 from Washington Street to the 205 interchange for a maximum of 104 hours. That closure date has been announced. It's going to be March 22nd to March 27th, so it's going to close on Thursday at 8 p.m., and it will be closed until a maximum of Tuesday at 4 a.m. This closure, as you may have noticed, is during spring break, or the first weekend of spring break. We've worked on the closure for about 3 years now. although this contractor got to pick the specific date, we believe that the date is a good date because county, it's a furlough day, the county's not working, all these different agencies and people that work in Oregon City aren't going to be here. It's the lowest attendance day for the college. The school district is possibly thinking about not being open. We'll see. So hopefully we have an aggressive ad campaign to let people know that this closure is occurring. So we get 65,000 trips per day on that section of 213. And we wanted to reduce it as much as possible. And how we're doing that is through this advertisement campaign, which is coined a catastrophe. And the message is to tell everyone to essentially stay away from Oregon City for these 104 hours, and then come back.
How is that being advertised?
So we're putting it in our paper, papers of other jurisdictions, Oregonian. We have radio ads. We have an aggressive radio ad campaign, so they'll be leading up to the closure and during the closure 3 or 4 times per day. And then we will post signs around our jurisdiction and other jurisdictions. We're posting signs down in Molalla and Lino. All these different cities that are going to use 213 to maybe come up north. We're working with V County. We're working with the hospital, with the jail. Obviously, there's some people that still need to get into Oregon City. We're working with the airport so that they can start to advertise that as well. With the catastrophe, we are expecting essentially gridlock through all of Oregon City during this closure period. Yes.
Why is Abernathy Road closed to through traffic at the same time?
We've had a couple of experiments before we got to this closure. There was the hay truck that kind of fell over and all these different things. And we learned through that a lot of people cut through Abernathy and it causes a problem on our basic detour route. So the detour will be to go up 213, take Washington to 14th, and then get on the 99 on-ramp. So when that's open, it causes a problem for our detour route. And then also by closing Abernathy, there was significant traffic problems at that intersection with Abernathy and Washington, and this will allow emergency services to kind of have a way to get around and potentially sort of make their way up to the hospital or to wherever they need to go as well. We are setting up a mobile emergency operations center at Home Depot. So we'll be setting up one of those trucks, and we'll be there the whole time. ODOT will be on hand the whole time. Obviously, the contractor will be there. So the closure is to allow that structure that they're building next to 205 to slide into place. So it's a bridge, and it's being built on a rail, and that rail will be slid into 205, then they'll pave it during that 104 hours, and then they can open it back up. You started to notice some variable message signs or sign bridge over 213. That'll start to notice the closure 30 days ahead of time. There are multiple notices going out in water bills for multiple months. We're mailing a notice to everyone in the UGB and a little bit outside the UGB. What else? We've contacted the school districts, the private schools, all the churches in Oregon City and nearby that would drive through 213 as well to let everyone know about the closure. So it's our hope that we just have fewer traffic coming through the city so that congestion is not as bad, but we are anticipating severe congestion, especially at that 99E exit. ODOT's concerned about the closure as well. They're setting up notices on I-5 near Wilsonville to direct people to go to I-5 and avoid 205. Vancouver will have notices. So we're kind of anticipating somewhat of an effect on the region as well.
Yeah, I'm going to be parochial here. I mean, I live on Holcomb, and so I think the people who live on Holcomb and that whole Park Place neighborhood need to know that you're closing Abernathy, because they all kind of anticipate this coming, I think. But that will probably be something new to them.
So,
I was going to say also, I know that the chamber is doing announcements every week, and have you notified the neighborhood associations?
Neighborhood associations, it should also be in Chamber Wire, and we're working with Main Street organization as well. It'll be in their email blasts that they do.
Any television with Comcast or BCT, would any of those waived give us airtime?
We have sent out a public press release. We're anticipating it will get a lot of sort of free PR, but then also we're paying for newspaper and we're paying for radio. For the TV, we'll be putting out the press releases, and we'll be putting up sort of this notice on Willamette Falls TV as well. So we're not paying for a commercial, but hopefully if you drive anywhere along the route, there will be signs along the way for the 30 days prior. If you live here, you'll have been bombarded with things in your mail and your water bill. So hopefully you get the message from multiple arenas, multiple times.
And if all else fails, we can take Clackamas River Road up to Carver and down 212 and back to 205.
So we have two alternate routes. Our detour route's up Washington, but the alternate would be, if you take Beaver Creek to South End and then go to, South Second to 99, but 99 is going to be kind of blocked up, and then also take Clackamas River Drive to Carver. We're having flaggers at that Carver intersection, so we've got to see where the problems will be. Many engineers are on this to try and figure out how to safely get people through the city, and then once you're out the city, if there will be any pinch points like that Carver intersection at the bridge, how to get you through those safely. We have flaggers on staff 24 hours a day for the closure period on our main detour. Then they'll be staged around the city as well. We're also working on getting tow trucks staged around the city. I bring in my bike.
There you go.
I recommend that. So this is just a notice to let you know it's coming up and that the closure dates just got announced.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate it. Okay, next we have transportation issues.
So, there's 3 memos in your packet from Kittleson and Associates. 2 of them address issues in the Berkeley Hills neighborhood, specifically along Malala Avenue at Berkeley Hills Drive, and the other one's Holcomb Boulevard. So, excuse me. There was concern raised by the neighborhood and with regard to the intersection of Berkeley Hills and Malala. I'm not recalling how long ago that was, but it's been some time, probably 4 months ago at
Yeah,
least.
September, October.
Yeah. When this issue was first raised, and there was some of the concerns that were brought up had merit to them enough that we decided to hire Kittleson to do an analysis. Not traffic count analysis, but have one of their traffic engineers, the same traffic engineer that gave us a recommendation for South End Road out beyond Warner Parrott, in that corner where we had the car accidents. I don't know if you all remember that. You weren't all on the committee at the time, but so anyway, we've used this particular engineer to review traffic concerns that have a little more complexity to them, and where we want kind of a third-party impartial a recommendation on maybe what we could do. This particular neighborhood has really 2 in-and-out access points, and one's Berkeley Hills Drive, the other one's Hilda. And I think the concern is for people trying to get out of Berkeley Hills Drive onto Malala, specifically trying to make a left turn onto Malala from Berkeley Hills Drive. There's no signal there. There's little in the way of storage so that people can't get out and turn into a refuge island, because there's also a pedestrian island right at that location as well. So the order of these is a little bit kind of out of order. There's a second response to specific questions that I think it's a woman named Edith Risen submitted. And so the first memo in here addresses her concerns. For the most part, I think they've done a pretty good job. A lot of the concerns that were raised were about signage on private property and or the request that we prohibit certain movements on private property. And I think for the most part, the conclusion was most of those either we can't apply against a property owner. For instance, Chevron Gas, there's only so much we can do to control their driveway access. There was a couple of things that were recommended in terms of Mountain View Street, striping, prohibiting parking. Those have been under consideration from the day we kind of reconstructed Mountain View when we built the pump station and upgraded the reservoir there just a couple years ago. The carpet shop right there on the corner really has some loading and unloading issues that they've only got one way to get on there. So there is some concern about how much we can limit that. But I think there's a lot of good information here that could be presented to the property owners there, especially in hopefully a friendly conversation about neighborhood concerns. And Kathy and I have talked a little bit about how maybe we could share that with those property owners. It'd be really great to have a small contingent of, maybe a representative from the neighborhood, someone from the city, and maybe someone from this TAC that could sit down with those property owners and just suggest to them some things that maybe they might consider, because at this point I don't think we can regulate access on or off of their property. So I thought they did a good job of addressing all of those concerns. Again, that was one of those memos where we reviewed it, we pushed it back to the neighbor or to the consultant to provide some edits or maybe some more content. And I think they've done a good job with that. So that's the first memo. The second memo. Go
Quick
ahead.
question: is this the completion of the research is done, and basically where we're at is that's not going. There really is not much we can do other than maybe some striping, and when will that decision be made? Who makes that decision?
Well, I suppose, to me, I didn't see a lot of things that needed to be done other than conversations and education of the local businesses. If we're talking memo number one. So there was one comment about striping. I think I looked at that, and there's, again, we could take stripe a little further back, but really that's about prohibiting parking for the carpet shop, which they've really only got one door. I'm not really sure how much more that striping is going to do to discourage that parking.
So
But-
based on the analysis and on your recommendation, there's really not much we can do other than just talk them
talk them
Talk to
through
them
with the
maybe.
business owners and see what maybe Chevron, for instance, could do with localized signing or striping to encourage traffic to come in one way and go out the other.
And who would be best to sit down with the original petitioner? I can't recall his name.
This was Edith.
Edith, okay. And we had a gentleman come and testify.
Kathy, you sent this to Edith, did you
Yes.
not?
I did.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And yes, you came in behalf of the neighborhood, is that correct? Yes.
And
So.
Edith responded, she received it.
So we have yet to meet with the neighborhood, but
Okay.
that's probably the next step, is to just talk through that with them, figure out if we need to do that at a regular meeting or just do it, one-on-one with a representative from the neighborhood.
All right.
But again, for this memo with regard, well, actually both memos have some element of conversation with the property owners right close to that intersection, and that seems like the best approach that would be our next step.
And Don, you were wanted to comment. Did you want to do that now, or?
Well, sure.
I'm Don Wright, and I live in the Barclay Hills neighborhood area, and I'm a representative of the Barclay Hills Neighborhood Association. And they appointed me to the traffic committee. I don't know why, except that they pushed me up forward to talk to you about the left turn situation at Barclay Hills and Malala. Edith Reiser, who's a member of our neighborhood, came forward with her own list, and she's wanted answers to her list. She didn't really care about our side of the street. She wanted her side of the street taken care of. So I think you have taken care of that, and I want to thank you for all the work you've done. I think that your idea of coming before the neighborhood association and actually explaining all of this would be, can I talk this way? Is that good? Well, I don't want to, it would be absolutely correct, because I wouldn't want to try to paraphrase you or throw up pieces of paper to everybody and, all of that. I think they need a chance, the neighborhoods, people who actually attend the meetings. There may be several thousand people in our neighborhood, but we only get 30 of them at our meetings. So I don't know if we're a representative of the group. This Ms. Reiser, she wants to rename the group the Elyville Neighborhood Association. That was the old name of the neighborhood. It wasn't Barclay Hills. So we do have our own situation, but I was noticing in the packet that you sent, Kathy, I think you're getting to this stuff here, right, later?
Yes.
But Barclay Hills shows up in Figure 2, and Barclay Hills shows up in Figure 3, and Sheet 4 of Figure 2 has Barclay Hills, and a lot of Barclay Hills stuff going on here. I assume that means some kind of action on our streets as far as maintenance?
Right, that's another topic, but that's another timing issue that might make sense to.
Just speaking for myself and not for the neighborhood, having driven the street for 11 years, I believe I used the phrase kind of a Wild West situation when you get to the veterinary, which is right there at Barclay Hills and Malala, that there is no visual cues for any of the motorists on what they're supposed to do. It's, my God, I'm going to whip her up and I'm going to take a left turn, or I'm going to whip it up and I'm going to go across 4 lanes and over to the Chevron station, or I'm going to whip it up and take a right turn in front of the bus because I can't see what's coming. It's anybody for themselves. The fact that there isn't any crash data, is that the important thing? Crash data?
Crash data is typically what you're looking for.
Yeah. We haven't had any crashes.
High accident ratings. Yeah.
Well, I would hate to think that we would have to have some kind of a tragedy there in order for something to be done. I notice, you talk about your isolated neighborhoods out here and that stuff, but in your master plan she was talking about, the traffic safety, this is on page 10 here. It says the OHP, that's the Oregon Highway Plan, Policy 2F, so on, so on, so on. Proposed projects will aim to reduce the vehicle crash potential and or improve bicycle and pedestrian safety by reviewing upgraded facilities that meet current standards. Well, maybe our corner of the world meets current standards. Some of us who walk our dogs across there wonder if we're going to make it across and back the other way. I don't drive left turns there, and I did measure off Hilda. With the parking of the vehicles, Hilda being a narrow street anyhow, there's hardly room for 2 cars to pass on that curve, much less have all the traffic come up from, as you propose, up from the Barclay Hills neighborhood to use Hilda for that. I don't think you can stack them in there. It's my opinion. But
Right. So the gist of the Barclay Hills memo, if we're going to move on to that one, is that we've got a neighborhood that has 2 access points. I would say Barclay is wide. It's good. It's relatively flat. There's no signal. Hilda is got some. It's got the signal, which is great, but it's got some width issues in a corner there as you approach the intersection. So neither is perfect. But the main concern was the concern for people trying to turn left off Barkley Hills and turn out onto Malala, and having to wait there. Not so much that this, I don't remember, safety I think was one of the concerns, but the main concern was delay and having to wait there before cars would, there'd be a break in the vehicle traffic to be able to cross that intersection. The preference was to eliminate I think one of the proposals was to eliminate the pedestrian median so that it would provide a refuge for a vehicle turning off Barkley into the center median and then be able to proceed onto Malala southbound. So this looked at all of those, recognizing that it's not a very perfect world on that side of Malala Avenue, and recognized that, first of all, the pedestrian crosswalk and the idea of eliminating that was discounted in the fact that it was the right place for a crosswalk. Pedestrians would cross there; they would have the right to cross there, whether there's a refuge or not. The feeling was that left turn would make it, without the refuge, would make it even more concerning for pedestrians, because people are, looking to kind of dart out and get across the intersection and less likely to pay attention to the pedestrians. So I think the conclusion here was that the refuge should stay. There was suggestions about striping the medians, and it's right there in front of that Chevron station, and between really a roadway that could have used some access management so that we wouldn't have intersections so close together, right? We've got Mountain View and we've got Barkley Hills, and there's really hardly room for a turn pocket there. The conclusion was work with the neighborhood, educate them about the other option for use of Hilda, albeit Hilda's not very wide. It'd be Kathy and I talked about this the other day. It'd be great to have a wider segment along there, but we've looked at limiting parking along that section, and again, we've got these driveways with very little, and this is on Hilda Street, we've got driveways with very little room for even on-property parking, so eliminating that when we did the intersection improvements at Malala and Hilda, that became a problem for us back then. So we have a history of problems there. I'm not sure it's unsafe. I'm just recognizing that there's delay. Now, what can we do with the paving? That's the next topic. Or what could we do with striping because the other suggestion was to make that a 3-lane section at Barkley Hills.
You're talking about Barkley Hills now?
Yes, and Barkley Hills, to make that turn that into a 3-lane section, so one that would head into the neighborhood and 2 that would head out. And the concern there was just whether or not there's really width for that. I think this report kind of left room for that idea to move forward, and I think we're still considering that. I think the right time to do that would be if we paved Barkley Hills, or when we pave Barkley Hills.
What happens right now is that people coming out of the neighborhood who always have to turn left there, they don't want us to wait for a light, is that they turn 3/4 this way so that they can see what's coming over the hill. Well, that plugs what would be 2 lanes then going out. Anybody that wants to turn right has to wait for the left turn people to negotiate traffic this way, pedestrians going this way, people coming out of the, you've seen it all before. But it's the left turn thing is a grinder for us people who drive a lot.
Yeah, and
I'm sorry that nobody has been killed there yet, but it's coming, I'm sure.
Well, we don't want that either. That's not what we're saying. It's just crash data is helpful. It always helps support a change. But I guess the concern about the 3rd lane was just that receiving lane. Barkley Hills is also at a bit of a skew. So it's not a T intersection. It's offset just a little bit. So those vehicles that are northbound on Malala that want to turn into Barkley Hills, make a right turn into Barkley Hills, the tendency is to turn out a little wide. So we're talking about narrowing up kind of the receiving lane there to fit the 3 lanes. And that has some problems associated with it too. So still something we'd look at likely when we pave try and figure out a striping plan that would accommodate to the best of our ability. One thing that we've done some of you might remember this, on South 2nd, as you come up the hill to South End Road, or High Street at that point. So if you're coming off 99E, you go past the Still House, you go up the hill, and you come up to that stop sign right there at High Street. Everybody know where I'm talking about? So right there, we've painted it's wide enough for 2 small vehicles, not wide enough for 2 large vehicles. So we've put the double yellow. We haven't put a center stripe there, but we've striped the arrows so that it gives you kind of that appearance, if you're a small enough vehicle, that you're permitted to squeeze in there. But if you're too large of a vehicle, we didn't want that lane designation. Maybe that's a solution for that location that would kind of help clean up most of that.
John, can I invite you to our next neighborhood meeting to explain all this?
I would. When is your next neighborhood meeting?
I think it's next month, probably on a Tuesday. I'll get the date.
Okay.
Let you know.
I'd be happy to go to that. If I can make it to the next meeting, I'll be there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So, between those 2 memos, we looked at those in a way that we could scrutinize, because my sense was we were going to be sitting in front of, or I would be sitting in front of the neighborhood meeting, and I wanted to make sure we were answering as many of those questions as we could, even if the answers weren't perfect. And I think that's the problem with that location, is it's not perfect out there. There's lots of things about that end of Oregon City that, there's slides down there, there's narrow roadways. We got a pump station problem down there. It seems like a problem child for Oregon City. So
I would just think that if you lived down there, that you would not even try to take a left turn there from 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 at night almost. It's just be impossible. I mean, I can see times when you'd have to wait there 15 minutes to turn left. Off of Mount, what is that?
Barkley Hills.
Yeah. Where Hilda's got the, and it's just and if you live down the newer section, it's just 1 block or half a block over to get to Hilda. It seemed like it'd save you a lot of time if it'd just be part of the nomenclature of going to Freddy's or wherever you wanted to go.
And I think we measured it's about 100 feet different in terms of distance for those people kind of on the lower end of the subdivision.
A question here, if I'm looking at the map correctly, do people from Barkley go north so they can come out on Mount Hood to Molalla?
You can't.
Mount Hood was
One way.
Closed off?
is a one-way
Yeah.
in only. Yeah. So that was part of the problem. There was the site distance and people trying to use that as an exit point from the subdivision. So when we rebuilt Molalla Avenue, that was
Okay.
part of that project as well. But good point. Mount Hood was at one point you could go in or out of it. But
I would imagine it's cost prohibitive, but is there any chance that a signal could be put at that intersection, red light, blinking or something? And
it wouldn't warrant signal. It's too close.
Too close,
And-
yeah.
And again, nobody would want to see anybody, have a tragedy
Injuries,
there,
yeah.
but it just doesn't warrant it from a safety.
Okay.
The numbers aren't there to show that.
Chevron Station is already compromised quite a bit for going in and out of there. You'll never see a person with a travel trailer going in and out of there. You'll never get out of there,
Right.
let alone in there.
So the next memo is about Holcomb Boulevard, and this was not generated from a neighborhood. It was really our own decision to pursue that after there was that latest fatality accident that happened, making sure we're doing all we can as a city. This is a county road. This was a county road. We recently, within the last 2 years, took over Holcomb Boulevard from the county. And so a lot of the signage and the striping has been as it's been forever. And if you're familiar with this coming down Holcomb, there's a real tight hairpin turn. It drops in grade and sharpness as you drop down to Redland Road. And so we asked Kittleson to take a look at that. They've made several recommendations. There's some pretty basic, pretty straightforward recommendations. Everything's straightforward on this, but there's some kind of immediate recommendations that they suggest happen with regard to pavement markers, striping, and signing. And then there's a secondary which we think has merit. We just don't want to take that on until we actually take on pavement reconstruction of that section of Holcomb, and we don't have that queued up for any time in the near future. But we're a little bit worried about pushing vehicles too far out to the shoulder, because typically the shoulder pavement isn't structurally sound enough to handle all that pavement all that traffic that you've moved. So right now we're looking at just following their recommendations for signing and pavement markers.
John, if I might, a couple of neighbors that I chat with from time to time have seen this report, and they say that they'd also like to see addressed, whether or not it happens in the short term or not, sidewalks, because it's for bicycles and sidewalks, it's a big deterrent right now in that area.
Right. Yeah, that's, I don't know if you know, but Holcomb Boulevard, a section of Holcomb Boulevard just got street lighting and sidewalks.
Correct, I see that.
Pretty good section of that. That took, that's part of the reason why it's now a city road, is because the city and the county worked together to fund that project and get what little bit of sidewalk there completed that we were able to. But that's a perfect comment for our transportation system plan, because I think once we start kind of connecting those dots, and I part of that's going to come with or without comments like that, but there's really not a funding mechanism for sidewalk extensions of that magnitude. Well, even for the small ones, but I totally get it. I've walked it. I've tried to walk up and down that roadway just in looking at this little thing here, and it's clear that sidewalks would be helpful, and it's used by pedestrians quite a bit.
Yeah. I was going to second that comment. I see pedestrians there all the time.
Yeah.
That's definitely something for the TSP commentary. But one thing, I noticed that they were going to do the raised marking on the side lines, the center line, or the inside line. What about they call them dots, or the little bumps that would go across the road and give some warning to people,
Right. So that's kind of it's like a speed hump, only different.
Well, they're just dots, so you get the vibration that something's happening. You get that typically out in the country when you're coming to a stop sign out in the middle of nowhere. They'll have these dots.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that at least warns you. Whenever I hit them, I go, "Oh, what's happening?" And it does warn me that something's happening, and I need to be cautious. So it seems like that would be a pretty inexpensive. In addition to the other things, would be pretty expensive to lay down several strips of those. And
My recollection, and over the years, because I know a person that was a year ahead of me in school in 59 killed a person there. And the other ones, I think this girl even here, it's really a matter of speed. It's not a matter of,
Right,
it's
right,
just a
right.
matter of they get up there and whether it be foggy or just they don't know where they're at and they go too fast, and that's too sharp a corner to, it needs to be, I don't know, some place that get them to slow down. I don't know how you do that, but it's usually, a lot of times, it's just people going way too fast.
On this note over there, you ever been on the highway 211 between Molalla and Woodburn? There's a stop sign, I think it's Yoder or somewhere in that area. They got grooves in the pavement, and boy, it wakes you up right away when you come to that stop sign.
Well, and there's also grooves, I know, coming out of Redding on a curve going down,
Out of where?
out of Redding, California, for trucks, because, and the highway is all grooved. in a certain section to go around this curve,
Well,
so,
there's one right there on Mall Road, too.
and it does slow them down. I mean, I don't know what the
It's 3
price
miles
is.
past.
It's basically kind of like what you have on the freeways,
Like
Right.
go-
on the edges.
Yeah, but in this, it's in all the lanes.
Go across the-
Yeah.
Intersection, yeah.
A lot of times it's at locations where the roadways tee, where they tee up, so that
Yeah.
people don't go flying out into the...
Right.
Right.
John, with the short-term recommendations that are on this report, do you have a timeline that the city's looking at to make those short-term recommendations come to pass?
So the question was, do we have a timeline on the short-term recommendations? I don't have a specific date, but what I can tell you is we've been, it's not the greatest time of the year to put any kind of pavement markings down. So that's one concern, but that's not to say that we can't get them down because we do have dry days. We've been focusing on we just finished up Lynn. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but on your way up 5th and through Lynn all the way up to Leland Road, we've just replaced all the signage along there and updated the signage, cleaned the signage. We've had some complaints over the years about that. So it's on our list, and it's our intent to get those up. So I'm thinking within a month we'll see those signage and bump changes. But I don't have a specific date,
Okay.
and it's just one of the corridors that we're going to focus on, just like we did with Lynn.
Thank you.
And this is, I'll throw it out there, but my understanding is that people have come around that corner, they hit the guardrail and then flip over, and that's where the problem is when they go down into the trench there, right?
You gotta hit a cart coming up the hill.
Okay. I'm thinking if they could build the guardrail a little bit higher to keep cars from flipping, but, that's just a brainstorm.
Yeah, the consultant looked at that guardrail quite a bit. They recognize that there's kind of a couple trains of thought. At the speed of the last accident, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, wouldn't have mattered, yeah.
They were really far exceeding what the guardrail would have protected. The other is just having that guardrail back gives a lot of those vehicles that maybe miss that curve or motorcycles that miss that curve a little more room to kind of spin out as opposed to heading off the edge or hitting the guardrail. They didn't think that the guardrail was too out of place.
Okay.
And the previous fatality was that they were going even faster, I believe, the last one that occurred.
Motorcycle.
On the motorcycle.
The motorcycle.
Yeah.
There's also something to be said for not coming to, if you hit a wall, that's not good either.
Right. That's kind of like you move the guardrail too close and then...
If you make it higher and it's like
Bigger.
hitting a wall, you need something to...
I really like the active speed sign.
I know.
It's really a visual cue because it's such a long straightaway, and if people are going to be going at excessive speeds, they need some visual cue of, hey, slow down.
Right. One of the, and I don't want to discount the suggestion because it's a viable suggestion. It's used a fair amount, but the grooved pavement or the bumped pavement, if you will, in residential neighborhoods with a traffic speed of 40 miles an hour, they're loud. They're really loud. So if you own a home right there, you get to hear that, and so that's usually kind of the reason why it's not.
Freeway, you really don't.
That's right. Yeah.
Used in residential neighborhoods. County roads, state highways,
Yeah.
no big deal.
That's true.
A city street, it's just kind of noise pollution. But
Interesting.
the signs, the speed signs, I'm hoping they get cheaper because they really are pretty effective. And
Really, like 7,500 a piece, somewhere in there.
actually, we're seeing them around 5,000 for the solar powered
Okay.
signage. If we have to bring in power, depends on the site, on the cost of that. But yeah, they're around $5,000 a piece. And we've been, we've got several of them. We've had some problems with some of them not quite, lasting like we'd like them to. A couple. One was a Target there on the street.
McCord?
McCord.
McCord,
Somebody
yeah.
hit it, and
Yeah.
I think they hit and run kind of a deal. So, we've had some problems with those, but for the most part, they're very effective.
Yes.
The McLaughlin neighborhood, they're looking to apply for a grant they want a permanent one, and then another one that they can move around in their neighborhood. So, yeah, there's some activity there on the neighborhood fronts. I don't know that they've all figured that out, but McLaughlin's pretty excited about adding.
I would think this would seem a pretty good candidate for a permanent one, just because of the amount of fatalities we've had and the speeds that people can get coming down that hill.
Yeah. Most of what I've heard has been, there's been some kind of substance abuse going on there as well. So it's not just speed.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, is that any other, move on to the 5-year pavement plan?
Yeah, so I just asked Kathy to include this, the plan. We've talked about it. We presented it to you at one of your previous meetings. Here it is. It's not that thick. The key to it is the maps that we've included in your document. So this is online. You can go to our website, and it's. Do you remember? Is it listed?
The page is actually in your packet, the website page.
So the maps are there, and the whole plan is available for you as well. But this is what came out of a fair amount of effort to try and coordinate our needs against our reality of funding. And so the colors of the streets, not necessarily the background colors show the neighborhoods to give you a sense of, we're trying to spread the wealth as best we can. But the colored line segments are listed by year. And there's 3 projects that we're calling special projects. They're special in that they've got much more need than we've got budget, even under the PMUF or pavement maintenance fee. So, John, I don't know if you've noticed, but you pay a pavement maintenance utility
Right.
fee in your monthly bill. That funding is going directly to this kind of pavement improvement. And so anyway, we've shown more projects here than we can actually afford to build. We recognize that there's probably going to be utility needs that, despite our best effort, may come up that we may not be able to afford to do. So we're going to have to make a decision on whether or not we do the paving or wait for the utility projects. But so that and other reasons, we just made the list a little longer than what we thought we could afford to do. But we'll strive to get as much work done as we can. And those 3 special projects, we included some budget numbers for something less than what we think is needed there, more of a thin mill and overlay, as opposed to maybe something a little bit more like a boulevard project. Division Street, for instance, needs wider sidewalks, possibly some right-of-way acquisition. We've had pavement analysis done on that roadway, and based on the bus and the truck traffic, they recommend, this great big deep, section, kind of like what we did with 7th Street or some of the other boulevards we rebuilt. So we recognize that we don't have the funding to do that, but we also know that street's falling apart. And so we stopgap, if you will, that we're probably going to put under that. Pearl, if you drive Pearl, I recommend you find a different street to drive on right now because it's in pretty bad shape. But, there's some geometric issues there. It's a little narrow in a couple spots. We need guardrail. It's not just a mill and pave job, even though that's probably what we're going to do to it. So we've called those special projects. Malala is definitely a boulevard project. There's a whole Malala plan that calls for same kind of improvements we've done along the rest of Malala. But again, we don't see that funding happening, so we'll probably do some more stopgap kind of stuff, mill it, pave it, patch it. But it would be a more significant project than a typical patch job. So anyway, we wanted to share that with you, and I think the next map shows more of the things that we call preventative maintenance, our slurry seals, our chip seals. So we didn't put a particular year with those. We just determined that these are the streets where we're going to try to spread those kind of dollars around. We've got about $200,000 a year we're going to be using for preventative maintenance applications, and these are the areas where we anticipate targeting.
Excuse me, John, can we back up just 1 second? On the first map, is it possible to get, it's kind of hard to see the map, so maybe a list of streets that could fail if we don't fund them, so that, hey, here's a list, these are streets that are going to fail if we don't. I don't know if any of the streets are that bad.
Well,
From a pavement management
the
standpoint.
nice thing about, and again, I know it's on an online thing, but if you've got access to online, you can open this map and you can zoom right in on
Okay.
it, right? So you can go to there. There also is a spreadsheet, a worksheet of all the streets by year that are shown on this in color, and it talks about the kind of fix that we're proposing. There's also a map in the study that shows what our actual needs are versus what we can afford to do, and that list is quite a bit longer than what we're showing here. So we recognize that we're going to see our I think the overall study suggests that our pavement conditions on average around the city are going to improve just a little bit, even with this funding. They're not going to go down, and when I say there's a rating system, we've talked about our pavement condition index. That number will likely eke up just a little bit once we finish this plan, and everything else kind of, as we're doing work, everything else is deteriorating, right? So that program looks at those that kind of big picture overall rating. We will see some streets continue to fail. For instance, our a lot of maybe a cul-de-sac or some of those streets that we've had to prioritize. We just don't have the money to do it.
And I think, I've seen this in other jurisdictions, I just don't think that's a message that's sent out really clear to the residents in the city that, hey, if we don't do something, these streets are going to fail, and the cost of rebuilding a street from scratch is a lot more than maintaining it.
Yeah.
And we need funds, and I just don't think that message is loud enough at times, because the ultimate cost of rebuilding a street is far exceeds the cost of maintaining it, and we don't have the money to maintain our current street inventory. So I think that's a message that somehow this group or the city or somehow that message needs to get out, that whether it's with bonds or some type of funding mechanism, we need to continue to be creative in our search for additional funding for road maintenance.
When did you, as a newcomer to town, when did you begin that roadway utility, road improvement, or maintenance utility?
In 2007, the City Commission authorized the pavement maintenance utility fee, and at the time the recommendation was for a number twice as big as what we started collecting. So, the City Commission recognizing, trying to implement the full brunt of what was being recommended was a pretty big bite. So they implemented it at 50%, and every year thereafter, in fact, we're into, I think we've still got at least one more year. Do you remember, Kathy?
2 more years. Is it $9.50 now?
I think it's $9.50 a month. I think it goes
Yeah,
to
so then if 1 more year.
close to $12 dollars a month, right?
Yeah.
So we've been ramping that up and collecting those revenues and spending them.
What does that generate per year right now at the seven, whatever?
I think it's
That report.
It's
It's a new report.
in this report. I think it generates close to 1.5 million.
On that issue, would it be possible, maybe next month or a future month, putting something on the agenda to bring us up to speed on the budget process and how that gets, what that looks like? And
You mean for streets or for the city overall? Or?
well, transportation in particular, and then, yes, streets, and, where are we at in the process? So, it sounds like we're out of money.
No, I wouldn't say we're out of money.
Okay.
I'm just saying we've set some pretty high standards here for this pavement maintenance.
Okay.
So we're pretty happy about what we've got
Okay.
in terms of the fact that the city, took on a pretty tough issue and approved a pavement utility fee. And Jonathan, I agree with you, that message is not heard. I wouldn't say it's not told, because I think we've been trying to tell that, but it maybe isn't heard, or you know how it is about these neighborhood meetings and websites, and it's hard to get that word out. But the other little challenge that the city has is we've got our TSP coming together, so there's likely to be cost implications there. We've got sanitary master plan. Well, actually, the next one that's going to come up is water master plan, and we've got this water rate issue to deal with. And then the sanitary master plan, and we've got a brand new stormwater permit with a whole bunch of new regulation that we're going to. I think the sense is, and Nancy's obviously, Nancy and the city commission are the ones that kind of set the tone of which we're going to go after, but they're very sensitive to rates and trying to balance that, and we're trying to do the best we can with that, and recognizing that, I bet you every one of our utilities you could justify changing rates to the point where people would throw us out on our tails. Go ahead, John.
Are all of the various enterprise funds supporting themselves, or some of them having to be supported by the general fund supplement?
No, I think if anything, it goes the other way around.
Yeah, it should be, but I was just curious.
They're not. So we don't get any general fund dollars for this, and gas taxes aren't necessarily general fund, but that's the closest thing I can think of that kind of simulates a general fund, is gas taxes go towards street maintenance. But it wasn't nearly enough. Actually, gas taxes have dropped, have gone down because of
with the recession,
conservation, in the recession.
The PEMA fee right now is $9 for residential, and its last increase is July 1st, and it'll be $11.22. And then after that, it is just a 3% annual increase. So $11.22, then the following year $11.56. So it's just inflation after that.
Okay.
We are tasked with completing a fifth-year report that takes a closer look at how we've done for the first 5 years of the program. That was part of the ordinance that was passed when we adopted the fee. So this gets pretty close, but I think it's a lot closer look at kind of where our pavement condition index is in relationship to where we started, how our pavement needs are kind of laying out, and so that's still coming.
Okay, any comments, questions? Next item is at our last meeting, there was a comment on bylaws, and the idea behind the comment was that maybe we could get more members that were from unincorporated Oregon City. Well, the bylaws require that members of this committee be residents of Oregon City. In my case, I'm a representative of the chamber. So anyway, I got to looking at it was suggested we change the bylaws to allow those a couple of at-large members. But when I was reading through the bylaws, section or Article 3, item B, does allow for 2 at-large members who are non-resident, but who are business owners. And so the thought was, is that enough? Does that give us enough latitude, maybe to avoid having to go through the process of changing the bylaws, or would we still like to pursue the idea of making it just straight non-resident and allow for a couple of those individuals to be on our board? Need time to think about it. We can table this for future. But for myself, I think we have enough latitude in the current bylaws, the way it's worded, I think we're okay in letting that go for now, but I'm open to whatever suggestions you all have.
We have 2 vacancies on this committee, is that correct?
That is
That's
correct.
correct.
Have we had any applications within our bylaws that have applied for this committee?
Have we had
Any applicants?
We had,
I know last time,
yeah, no, we haven't had any additional applicants.
okay, but it's still open at this
Still
It's still open.
Okay.
And I think they're advertised, there's several committees they were trying to fill positions.
Yeah.
So it's one of those.
And this is a large committee, 9 members. That, with the exception of the Urban Renewal Commission, has to be one of the biggest.
Excuse me.
And most powerful.
That's right, you know it.
Yeah, I think the Planning Commission is 5.
Well, have any of the other, committees allowed people that are not within the city limits?
We talked about that.
I thought we had talked about it last.
Doug, yeah, Mayor Neely did, and I thought the library or something, and it had to do with the library district boundaries.
I don't remember his answer. I know there's a Natural Resource Advisory Committee, and that seems like one that would probably encourage people outside outside the city limits, but I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I don't either.
Doesn't it seem like just yesterday we did?
I know in the case of our committee, we don't have
We did.
jurisdiction powers to tax dollars and those kinds of things. So I would think there'd be more flexibility in that. Whereas urban renewal or those are actually people in unincorporated are now voting on issues that affect the tax-paying dollars of city residents, and that's a rub for some people, I know. But I would think that since we don't have those kinds of that kind of authority, that we would be able to have a little flexibility there.
Well, people that live outside the city don't pay the same taxes that people who live in the city.
Right.
And they don't
Quite a
pay a
bit difference.
PIMA.
Quite a bit of difference.
They don't pay a PIMA if they don't.
Right.
I think it's just good the way it is myself. I mean, with the guys, who businessman like yourself or whatever, like he can belong, but if he lives outside the city, we're going to have somebody from Canby come in,
Right. Yeah.
Gresham.
That's an issue.
Yeah.
Metro, Portland. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was surprised by that suggestion. I think it had to do with the fact that we had someone here that seemed enthusiastic and didn't happen to qualify.
Well, our last, that's right.
It's almost,
Right.
it's almost a reaction to that, but I guess I was kind of surprised to hear that being suggested
Yeah.
that we consider.
There's a lot of people with 97045 that live east of here.
Oh, they live clear on Spangler Road. That's kind of a goofy thing. Spangler Road's got 97045, even though it's beyond Beaver Creek. And that's all,
Goes to the Springwater Highway.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we're okay with the way it is, and I don't think we need a motion or anything like that, so let's just move on. Okay. All right, next is the construction projects.
So as far as I know, I meant to get on their project website before this meeting, and I ran out of time. But as far as I know, Kathy, maybe you know more. Arch Bridge project is moving along as planned. Nothing unusual there. I think they're still hoping to be out of there by October of 2013 or end of 2013. Nothing's changed from what we
October
reported.
15th.
October 15th. Yes. Okay. I know they moved some barges to deal with river levels, and there's a plan to move more if they need to, but everything else seems to be moving on track with that project.
Yeah, they haven't had any updates since December.
I know we had there was a customer that complained about one of their barges was listing on the Friday before the New Year's weekend, and we couldn't hardly find anybody to respond to that. But it turned out that the contractor was actually out there, so all good. But
Well, and I thought that was nice that you brought pictures in last time, John.
Yes.
Yes, of the tour that you took on the bridge.
I know if I'd had more time, I'd like to get pictures. We should get pictures of the maybe just the 213 project. I think that whole bridge thing would be.
Yeah.
I did a
Good, too.
tour of it not too long ago, and I didn't take my camera, but
The West Lund Bridge is
You
the
mean
base,
the
the
Or-
base in Oregon City, excuse me?
the Oregon City Bridge, right?
I don't know, you know why? I've lived here a couple of years, and we've always called it the West Lund Bridge, and I don't know why.
Did you vote for or root for their football team too?
No, I did not. I was in Oregon City. But in fact, I was invited to a banquet here not too long ago that the ex-football players from Oregon City at the Westland. But anyway, they've got the concrete base on Oregon City side all finished and filled, and looks like it's that they had to put in there.
Yeah. They removed there's quite a bit of work that's happened. I mean, they're removing railings now and working on those. Those are under construction. And they've pretty much cored out that whole area between Main Street and the bridge. That's all been, so yeah, they're making solid
It's starting to
progress.
show now, some of the progress, I mean, I think.
At least we're not getting calls anymore saying, it's closed, but they're not doing any work.
Yeah.
You know, because now you can see them working.
Yeah.
We included an email. I thought we did.
No, we didn't include it, the one about the paving.
No, the 99E work. I was looking for that because I asked that to be in here.
No, I didn't put it in here, but I have it pulled up. Did I put it in here? No, you weren't thrilled with the format. So, this is actually kind of important. ODOT is moving ahead with the paving project. I think that they planned on doing that last year, paving 99E McLaughlin. And it is from where to where?
From 10th Street to the city limits. It'll probably go beyond that, but
Milepost 14.
out of Canby, right? I mean, not Canby,
Past
Kenema.
Kenema, through Kenema.
Milepost 14.
Where's that?
Milepost 14. It's where the last project ended,
Yeah.
or
And-
started. And then they're going to also do the part into Canby as well, so. So
Okay.
it's going to be a double project, is what it's
So
called.
for Oregon City, we know it starts at 10th,
10th,
and then it goes to the city limits. I think it goes beyond that. But
Milepost 14, yeah.
To where it's two-way, to where it's one lane each direction?
Correct.
Okay. And they're going to be changing Kenema from 2 lanes each direction to 1 lane each direction with a turn lane. And they're planning on night work. And the probable bid opening is March 29, so, I mean, right around the corner. And so that will be done this summer, and along with adding bike lanes. Does that about cover it, Scott? What am I forgetting? What are we forgetting?
I don't know about bike lanes, but sure.
That's what it says. We're
And how far
planning.
will those bike lanes go? All the way to Canby?
Milepost 14.
Milepost 14.
As mentioned in earlier emails, we are planning to restripe the highway through Kenema for 1 lane north and southbound and a continuous left turn median, along with bike lanes.
Okay.
It'll be a 3-lane section from just south of 2nd Street all the way to where it is 3 lanes now.
That'll be great. The neighborhood will like that. So we
The
have.
problem is we got to do a lot of public outreach because of all the traveling people that go through there.
Consider me informed.
Will there be a pedestrian protection area? That island? No. Okay.
We haven't. All we got was an email letting us know that this was on. So we haven't seen any plans or.
Probably don't need it, really. wide open there.
They tried to do it last year, but weren't able to
No,
get it done.
It was put off on the back burner, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden got brought to life again.
Yeah. So that's good. So it's a good thing.
We talked about the jug handle project already. Main Street. Before I go on to Main Street, there's another little update on 99E. Lolita's working on we're seeking out, ODOT, I guess, is seeking out consultants to do the design work from the Clackamas River Bridge on 99E to Dunes Drive. So marries up with the paving project that we had when we
It's
on the other
called
piece.
the McLaughlin Enhancement Project Phase 2. We did Phase 1, which was the Willamette Terrace and all that, and now we're doing Phase 2, which is from the bridge,
from Clackamas River Bridge to Dunes Drive. I
yeah,
guess it's,
a small segment.
and I know she's pursuing some grant
We-
funding for some stormwater improvements that would be pretty nice to get done at the same time. So if we get all those funds, we'll have quite a little project there.
Yeah, we already have $3.4 million in federal funding. And then there's an Urban Renewal Commission match, and that's going to the commission tomorrow, the Urban Renewal Commission tomorrow, and we're getting some feedback that not everybody is thrilled to spend money on that. So Nancy's a little bit concerned because she doesn't want to forfeit any of the federal funding.
That's interesting.
So I'm back onto the agenda. The Main Street projects, two-way conversions complete. You've driven that, I'm sure. Every one of you have enjoyed that.
Been down there.
Steve, you haven't been down there?
No.
Well, you should try it out. It's pretty good. I think it's a lot better.
I think look right or left, whichever you want. Look toward the Singer Creek Falls and look at the Chinese writing they got up there.
Who ever come up with that? I don't know.
The other project is a project Eric Wargren's managing, which is basically sidewalk improvements, street lighting improvements along Main Street from 6th to 10th. So the intersection that we just redid, it'll marry up to that, and it'll go all the way to, actually it goes all the way to, portions of it goes all the way to 99E. So from 5th to 10th. And then it also includes a block of 7th Street between Main Street and the tunnel entrance. And there'll be a new concrete intersection at the elevator at Railroad Avenue and 7th Street. And I guess, so that awarded to the same contractor that's building the jug handle project here recently. And
They're doing the underground work.
they're just getting started with I think they've just mobilized. Eric gave me a detailed. They're setting up signage this week. They set up signage, setting out notices, calling for locates. They're starting their work between 5th Street and 6th Street. And so then next week they'll actually start some sidewalk demo. The only caveat is that we've decided to add, the bid prices were good enough from what I understand, that we've added something that we really kind of wanted to add from the beginning but couldn't because of the way the state was reviewing this project, and kind of, I don't quite understand all that, but the good news is we're adding water line replacement throughout pretty much the whole project. So we've got some old steel pipe or cast iron pipe that we want to replace with new ductile iron pipe. And so, the original plan was to just maybe take 3 feet out from the existing curbs and put in new curbs and sidewalks, but not replace the pavement, basically across the road section. and this will then give us, this is going to pay for paving from, again, that same project limit. So that's pretty big as well. But that is obviously going to have an impact on schedule, and so they haven't worked out those details yet. They've really pretty much just, they're just jumping right in to the design work. We had a design meeting today about it, in fact, so the consultant's ramping that up pretty quickly. Let's see. So the idea is to do the work between 5th and 6th. They're going to do the work on one side of the street, and then back up and move across the other side and do that side of the street. Overall, the work will start between 5th and 6th, then move to 6th and 7th, continue up 7th between Railroad Avenue and Main Street, then continue back down Main Street to 7th and 8th, heading north up to 10th. That's the progression. Now, if this water line work changes that, first of all, they're talking about a couple different crews. They're talking about night work, so there may be some real glitches to, or I shouldn't say glitches, changes to the schedule that incorporates that water line work. So I wouldn't say bet on anything that I've told you yet. We may have to be a little more flexible. So every Thursday there's a meeting. We get contractor updates on Thursdays. And the other thing that went out is the local businesses all along Main Street. We sent them a notice kind of notifying them of this additional work that we're proposing to do. So I know there's a fair amount of public involvement or public education on that. It's also underway. So it seems to be running, or we're feeling good about the pricing for one. We're feeling good about the qualifications of the contractor that's doing the work, and the consultant that's doing the work. And the more work we can get done there, the better. I mean, it's a pretty old town downtown on that section, old utilities.
I see someplace where the Main Street project had new street lighting as well.
Yes, all LED lighting. So it'll be new. They'll look old, but they're the historic look
Will they all
fixtures.
be the shorter poles? Will you have any higher lights or?
Most of them are going to be shorter. I think all of them will. So what you see at 10th and what you see at 8th are the new lights. So they'll be the same as those. Nothing real high. Just so you know, I think we're using some of the lights like out here on 7th. Those are the teardrop. They're the taller ones. Mm-hmm. We've used them on McLaughlin Boulevard McLaughlin Boulevard in that section that we redid. And so the new section would include that kind of lighting as well. We've done it on 7th, and we'll do it. And it also is that same kind of lighting is going to happen out on the Jug Handle project. So we'll have essentially, we've got lots of different styles of those lights, but basically there's the acorn and then there's the more of the teardrop. Do you know much about the 10th to 15th, Kathy, in terms of, it says like it's in design?
Yeah, I think it's like 90% designed. It's just a continuation of the current project for between 10th and 15th Street. And we keep applying for grant funds. And I think we have 2 grants submitted right now. And, like everybody else, we're waiting to hear if we're shortlisted and maybe selected.
The last is, there's some maps, which call our 2012-2013 Oregon City roadway reconstruction projects. So it's basically that these are similar to the maps that we've created for the 5-year plan, only this is 2 years worth of work. And the plan is to seek out a consultant team that can help us package those into biddable packages. And we haven't put all the details together, but this is our plan. We're right now looking at utility dollars. Do we have the dollars to deal with any utility needs? If we don't, we'll have to strike some of those projects. But that's kind of we're headed down there so that we can hit the pavement season with a pretty solid workload.
Nancy actually said Claremont probably won't be done because it needs a new water line.
That's it.
Are you looking at a map that you sent in the packet right now?
It's actually the last few pages.
Third
For
from last.
these
Third from last.
at the end.
It says sheet 5.
Yeah,
There's
one
a
of
sheet
them-
2.
Sheet 4 has Claremont on it, and that's proposed for 2013. But Nancy Crush, the city engineer, because we have a water rate rollback coming up, they want to get that handled and taken care of before she spends any more water money. And so any of these streets which require water work, underground infrastructure work, she doesn't want to pave them yet until we have some water funding sources in place.
So that's kind of one of those rate issues that you kind of were talking about, John, where we've got now street funding and a street need, and we've also got this water need, but it's unfunded need. So, do you use some of those pavement dollars to fix the water line? Well, then your pavement dollars don't go as far, and we've kind of made some commitments. And typically, we wouldn't necessarily spend that money on water infrastructure. At least a major water line. We might do a water service that needs repair or something, small works kind of thing. But here we're finding ourselves up kind of with this dilemma where we don't really have the dollars to do the underground utility work. And so, yeah, that's part of that where we've got this 5-year plan. We've tried to consider some of those things. We also kind of assumed that we were going to have some water funding, but this water rollback thing is really going to be going to make life difficult when it comes to identifying those projects. So just have to take them one at a time.
And I guess somebody had asked, or actually Mary Smith mentioned the maps, how
Thank you for
in
sending those.
in 2005, how you guys were given maps, but that was before we came on board. So anyway, we got you guys all maps, and one thing I noticed was Berkeley Hills wasn't represented at all. Isn't represented at all, but
Maybe he'll.
What do you
But
mean
anyway-
represented?
in,
It's not shown?
no, the street map, or Chris Dunlop put the maps together, and it shows where all of the TAC members live, to see, if we have a good cross-section of
Well, it might have been a final way back.
I realize you're almost the closest one
Yeah,
to City
It took
Hall.
me about 3 minutes to get here.
But I was looking to see what areas were covered, and Berkeley Hills is not covered at all.
We're on to future agenda items. Blaine, do you want to take it from here, or?
Sure. Let's see, item 6, future agenda items, review of speed bump design standards. Some of you may recall that we had an issue in a neighborhood where speed bump was put in, and it was a little bit too tall, and so there were suggestions of maybe putting more infill on both sides to make it a little smoother bump. So that brought up the issue of whether or not there are speed bump standards, and so we'll look at that. Let's see, pavement maintenance and utility fee. Not sure what to say about that, John.
needs to be written for a couple of years now, so it's Kathy's fault it hasn't gotten written yet, actually. No. It's definitely my fault.
I'll take the blame.
Kathy's always on top of things, but yeah, we need to do that for 2010 and 2011.
These are really just things I put on there because I don't want them to fall off. I don't want to forget about them. So it's kind of my tickler file, I think,
Okay.
and maybe yours too.
Well, the McCord Road speed study wasn't there. We were going to put a blinking sign there, or it was
Is that the one that was damaged?
being
It's
considered.
there, it's working now.
It's there now.
A couple of days ago, or today.
Some of these, I think we should maybe talk about, Lane, and figure out if there's a,
Another action.
I think the only follow-up on item C was conversation with the neighbor or the person who called. And
South End Road speed zone request was something you told me about to put on there.
Whereabouts on South End Road?
that's out, it's really on the way into town from the city limits into the first 35-mile-an-hour sign, which I think is right around,
John McLaughlin?
just
No, it's
beyond
beyond
John
that.
McLaughlin.
It's beyond Partlow. It's still 40.
Yeah, that's right. It transitions from, it's basically 40 miles an hour, but there was a request that it be changed to 35 all the way into town
From John McLaughlin, right?
from the city limits.
Oh,
In
okay.
the city.
Well, if it would be helpful, maybe we can meet and just figure out what we would need to do to put a cap on these and bring them to a close.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that any other items of?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you had mentioned budget, I think.
Yes.
So next time we get a little feel for those budgets that might relate to our advisory committee, so.
Yeah, I wrote that down. It is budget season, so I don't think this will be too difficult to put together. We're right now looking at, we've got a street fee and we've got transportation SDCs. So we've got a street operations budget, which is kind of what I manage, and then there's a transportation SDC budget, and then we've got the pavement maintenance utility fee budget. And so I guess I'm not sure by the time of our next meeting how far along we'll have with that, but if it's just an update on how that process is going, I think we could do that.
Well, and even some basic, I'm envisioning just a single sheet showing kind of where are the sources of income, and what are the sources of outgo, and just kind of give us a start to educate
On budget.
us about that. And
Okay.
I mean, not that we have any authority over the budget, but at least it's good for us to kind of get a sense of that, I think. And
Okay.
Yeah, I think if we looked at the approved current year budget, you wouldn't have to create anything new, and I haven't seen your budget, but it perhaps would have the information on 2 or 3 different funds, like if you run your road as an enterprise fund, it has probably a couple summary pages that would talk about the revenue sources and the major expenditure patterns.
Yeah.
It does.
It would be really straightforward if we were bringing forth the current year.
Yeah, why don't you do that first? and-
Okay. That's pretty straightforward.
I would also like to explore. Most of you know that there's I guess there's a Walmart is wanting to come to the property across from Safeway, and that does impact transportation. One of the real sticking points, I think, is the congestion that may bring, and it would be good for us to weigh in on that, I think, and I don't know who we talked to about that, but
One of the things that comes off the top of my head is we had a pre-application meeting with the Walmart development team last week, and I think it was about a 4-hour meeting. and what I heard, I don't always go to pre-app meetings because I'm not necessarily always on the development side, but just based on, what I know about the utility needs and the street needs, I participated in that with Bob Cullison, and we put together a pretty solid list of expectations for transportation and utilities, and I know there's some detailed, there's at least in a detailed agenda. I think there's, I don't know what planning, Laurel saw that meeting as well, so there's a pretty long list of things that the developer was handed as, I would say, more than our wish list, kind of first take at some things that they need to be thinking about and bring, if they're going to truly bring a proposal to the city for consideration, that they'll need to address those issues. So that might be something we could just plug into the agenda packet as a start, so you could see what was there. There was a lot on transportation. We actually asked Clackamas County, who does all our signal design, they don't do our design, but they review most of our signal work and they maintain most of our signals, and they had a lot of stuff on better boulevard analysis, traffic analysis, so for both Beaver Creek and for Malala.
So did they do a traffic impact analysis or preliminary one?
They have not yet.
They did one time.
Well, they did
because
once
already
when they
had a
applied
huge-
back in
they wanted to put it bigger.
2003
Right. But they haven't done anything
since.
since. And this is a much different proposal than what they were proposing in 2003, from what I understand. So, again, it was a pre-app meeting. So they didn't bring very much except for a site plan.
Oh, there was an article in the Oregonian about it also.
Yeah.
Can you get them to build us a library?
Build us a light rail.
Library.
Oh, a library.
Not library.
This is not a super center. This is a grocery store.
Right.
Yeah.
Or something.
It's a grocery store,
something.
apartment housing.
Yeah, there's mixed use, I believe, isn't there, proposed?
What I
A
saw
bank.
what I saw was a smaller store, and for
Focused
the
on
Walmart
grocery.
site, that they weren't saying what they were going to put in it. They didn't say it was grocery. But then they also have, I think, 4 kind of frontage buildings, if you will, for bank. I think is the one kind of tenant that they listed. They didn't say much more other than they had a footprint of maybe 4 buildings facing Malala.
What
Well,
do they
the
do?
article in the newspaper said there was going to be, 453 parking places. And I'm going, oh my. That traffic.
Traffic, yeah.
Who does the hazmat work up there? That's got to be contaminated ground where that wrecking yard was for many, many years. Because you just don't take, those years, you just unplug the pan, let the oil drain on the ground. Or it drained on the ground. Or antifreeze.
Dale's Wrecking Yard.
It's got to be terrible.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Probably just pave right over it.
I only stayed for the first 2 hours of the meeting, and we didn't talk about hazardous materials.
Yeah, they probably, did one time.
Okay, well, we can talk about that in the future, and I don't know what the timeline is for that, but it's just in the pre-app process, so, but it'd be good for us to be up to speed on that. Well, unless there's anything else, why don't we go ahead and adjourn? How about that?